It was the afternoon of February 5th, 2026. Responding to a medical call in a quiet Tennessee suburb, deputies found a scene destined for homicide. Deron Lee, an ex-NFL linebacker, was inside. Sports narratives often follow a chilling, predictable arc. The initial glory, the inevitable struggle, and the final, quiet descent into the darkness. For a time, Lee fit the profile, a gifted athlete whose professional output failed his collegiate promise. Now, the story has curdled. Lee is no longer just a player who didn't make it. He is a man in a cell, facing charges of premeditated first-degree murder. How does one go from NFL Sundays to a brutal crime scene in 10 years? To find the answer, we must return to the Indiana Elite Showcase where it started. In Indiana, he was the fastest man on the field. He took the top prize. It was a day of absolute victory, where his raw speed separated him from the world. He clung to that memory, a time when his physical superiority felt like a permanent shield. Growing up in New Albany, Ohio, Lee's potential was obvious to everyone who watched him. As a high school star, he was courted by institutions like Duke and Boston College. He chose Ohio State, where he evolved into a terrifyingly explosive force on the defensive line. His zenith came in 2015, facing Alabama in the Sugar Bowl playoff semifinal. With 7 tackles and 2 sacks, he was crowned the game's defensive most valuable player. That night, he arrived. 11 days later, the Buckeyes took the national championship from Oregon. Wearing a national title ring, Lee decided his time in college was finished. He bypassed his final year to enter the 2016 professional football draft. Next was the scouting combine, a week of cold physical assessment and psychological interrogation. He ran the 40 in 4.43 seconds, outstripping most elite professional receivers. New York took him 20th overall, offering a $10.28 million guaranteed contract. In that specific moment, did the weight of his journey hit him while he waited for his name to be called? Seeing his peers selected made the fantasy of his future feel suddenly, chillingly real. It was the culmination of years of labor finally manifesting into a million-dollar reality. The profound impact of that phone call was something he often struggled to articulate. The call was a peak, but his debut season was a stark, statistical failure. Analytics firms eventually labeled him the league's least effective rookie linebacker that year. His ratings plummeted until a 2018 drug suspension effectively ended his upward trajectory. He appeared in 43 games for New York, managing a mere 4 sacks during his tenure. His career stats stalled at 3 interceptions and 241 tackles. He drifted to Kansas City, earning a championship ring without playing a single postseason minute. The end came in 2021, following brief, failed stints in Buffalo and Las Vegas. He retired without a Pro Bowl nod or any meaningful recognition of his professional talent. After his exit, Lee's name returned to the headlines for a much more disturbing reason. By 2026, the retired athlete was living in a rental home outside Chattanooga, Tennessee. He was sharing his life with a woman named Gabriella Carvalo Perpetuo. While their meeting remains a mystery, they had been cohabiting for 10 days in February. Known as Bella, the 29-year-old was a woman of notable warmth and high ambition. Her parents remembered her as a natural light who treated no person as a stranger. From Massachusetts to Florida, she had spent her life building a foundation for her future. She eventually moved to New York City, pursuing a dream in the field of clinical journalism. She was drawn to medical narratives, but her own story was about to change forever. Her true calling pulled her away from clinical writing and toward the bedside, where the actual healing happened. She pursued a nursing degree with a singular, compassionate focus, protecting neonates during their first, most vulnerable moments of existence. Driven and deeply empathetic, she stood mere weeks from graduation, but in February of 2026, those aspirations vanished. Emergency services received a frantic call at approximately 1:30 p.m. on February 5th from the Snow Cone Way residence of Deron Lee. Lee reported to the operator that his partner had stopped breathing and claimed resuscitation efforts were already in progress. Dispatched as a standard medical crisis, the call took a dark turn once investigators stepped inside and witnessed the chilling reality. Responders discovered the motionless body of Bella sprawled across the floor of the main living area. Paramedics were already working on her, but the trauma on her body signaled foul play, despite Lee's overly simplistic account. According to his statement, he simply awoke from a nap to find her slumped over, devoid of any consciousness. The interior presented a disturbing puzzle. No forced entry, yet the kitchen floor was littered with shards of shattered glass. Forensic evidence told a violent tale, with blood spatters marking the walls, the flooring, and trailing up the stairs. Investigators noted chemical cleaners abandoned in haphazard locations, suggesting a rushed and illogical attempt to sanitize the environment. The placement of these items strongly hinted at a desperate effort to erase evidence within the dwelling. Lee's speech was fragmented, questioning her medication through a haze of apparent confusion. He appeared unsteady, expressing a need to sit as the weight of the situation seemingly settled in. The sheer volume and distribution of blood directly contradicted Lee's narrative of a peaceful awakening to a medical crisis. Then, the focus shifted entirely toward Lee's own bizarre behavior. Detective logs describe a man who was visibly shaken and evasive, failing to provide a coherent timeline of the afternoon's events. Law enforcement pressed for specifics, demanding Deron Lee bridge the gap between his story and the crime scene. Under questioning, he doubled down on his claim of being in a deep slumber upstairs while the chaos unfolded. Authorities grilled him on her last known movements and the precise moment they were last together. His response was a jumbled mess of uncertainty regarding her shower and the timing of his supposed rest. The investigator's skepticism grew as Lee's memory seemed to fail him at critical junctures. He blamed the shattered glass on a bizarre thermal event, claiming an open window followed by heating caused the shards to burst. He alleged the cleanup occurred prior to his nap, framing the mess as a mundane household chore. He claimed he expected her to complete the chores, only to return downstairs to find her dying. He feigned concern for her status while attempting to elaborate on the freezing temperatures causing the structural damage. His logic remained strained, insisting that the simple act of warming the room caused the glass to disintegrate spontaneously. He reduced the entire incident to a physical reaction of materials shrinking under stress. He maintained his ignorance as medical teams desperately fought to save the woman in the next room. The inquiry turned to basic identification, with officers meticulously recording the victim's surname. The name Perpetuo, spelled out letter by letter, was entered into the official record alongside her date of birth. He struggled even with her birth year, offering 1986 before trailing off into more uncertainty. He attempted to pivot to a previous incident, mentioning a slip during their first week in the new home. His narrative grew increasingly erratic as he speculated on what might happen during her lengthy hygiene routines. Midway through discussing her habits, he abruptly shifted focus, fixating on locating a phone charger. A sudden exclamation of distress punctured the air, though its sincerity remained questionable to those present. While officers observed, he rummaged through a closet, his erratic movements drawing further scrutiny from the team. His priority seemed to be a simple electronic accessory, a jarring contrast to the life-or-death struggle nearby. The deputy's line of questioning briefly shifted to check on the presence of any children in the household. After confirming no minors were present, the officer ensured no children would be arriving home to this trauma. A low, repetitive groan of disbelief escaped him as the perimeter was secured. Investigators attempted to maintain order, while Lee continued his display of high-pitched distress. Officers moved him outside, offering a moment of distance from the crime scene where his partner lay. In a final, chilling revelation, he mentioned they were attempting to start a family, leaving the status of her pregnancy unclear. Detectives inquired about her medication and his last confirmed interaction with Gabriella. They focused on establishing the precise moment he last saw her alive. He feigned ignorance, claiming she kept unidentified items within her personal bag. Police noted she carried a backpack before escorting him from the premises. Claiming a late arrival, he demanded an update on her medical condition. He recounted discovering her motionless on the sofa, assuming she was asleep. He remained vague about her movements prior to finding her in the room. Finding her on her side, he allegedly attempted a casual dinner conversation. He claimed he dialed 911 as soon as she spoke. The suspect insisted he was asleep, feigning shock at the unfolding tragedy. He questioned the presence of blood, acting oblivious to the physical evidence. Investigators confirmed the hemorrhaging while observing his cold reaction. He distanced himself from the scene, claiming he had not approached her. Investigators observed a trail of blood descending the stairs, likely belonging to her. He speculated she fell in the shower and crawled to the lower floor. He maintained he heard nothing from his separate bedroom that evening. His narrative fractured as he struggled to explain her state upon arrival. Forensics continued their meticulous work as the investigation reached a turning point. His comments suggested a grim awareness that she had already passed away. He attempted to describe a quiet, domestic scene before the discovery. Authorities pushed for the timing of their final verbal exchange. He nodded. Lee was detained as technicians used BlueStar to locate hidden blood. Testing revealed that several surfaces had been scrubbed clean of biological traces. This suggested a calculated effort to sanitize the crime scene. Blood traces in the garage indicated the violence spanned multiple rooms. The chemical revealed a set of human handprints pressed into the carpet. The prints suggested a victim desperately trying to crawl away from her attacker. Officials have not yet publicly confirmed the source of those handprints. A police affidavit noted that Lee bore visible signs of physical combat. Injuries to his hands and blood in his phone case were documented. Evidence was seized as the examination of Bella revealed the brutal reality. She suffered an abdominal puncture, severe bruising, and a broken neck. Her body bore massive trauma and a chilling bite mark on her shoulder. Her remains were transported to the county facility for a medical autopsy. Examiners concluded that blunt force trauma to the head caused her death. At 29, she was 3 months away from starting her life. With mounting forensic proof, investigators placed Lee under arrest that day. He was charged with murder and evidence tampering, held without bail. The violence in that Tennessee house followed years of similar allegations. Records showed he was serving active probation in Florida and Ohio. During his professional football career in 2017, a lawsuit alleged he assaulted a woman, though it was eventually dismissed. In April, Lee faced charges for attacking his mother, revealing a pattern of abuse. In Dublin, Ohio, a witness discovered Lee pinning a screaming victim with his fist cocked to strike. After the witness intervened, Lee's mother detailed being slammed into a wall and beaten across her face. By 2025, Lee admitted guilt to a downgraded charge of attempted assault. The court issued a 90-day sentence, though 88 days were ultimately suspended. This resulted in 2 days served, with supervised release extending through February 2027. A 2022 report detailed Lee striking another woman with a phone, causing her ear to bleed. It noted Lee throttled her while punching her pillow, leaving visible crimson marks on her neck. A disturbing behavioral profile was emerging, which investigators later highlighted during Lee's preliminary hearing. The court then requested that the defendant be brought forward. Case 20,651, involving a charge of first-degree murder, was officially called. This was joined by Case 20,06152. The secondary count involved the manipulation of evidence by Deron Lee. During a March hearing, investigators presented a chilling discovery found within the suspect's digital history. Upon reviewing the forensic data extracted from Lee's mobile device, detectives found he consulted an artificial intelligence about trauma and police procedures before calling 911. Counsel inquired if the software appeared to provide the defendant with specific tactical advice. The witness affirmed this, citing the exact logs from the device. Lee inquired about the physical indicators of injuries sustained from a bathroom shower fall. This inquiry occurred on February 4, 2026, at 11:49 in the evening. The detective was asked if Lee's query was reacting to the machine's previous output. Affirmative. Lee was probing for confirmation on the appearance of specific injury types. The artificial intelligence continued to provide detailed answers to his specific questions. The dialogue explored whether an accidental fall could realistically mimic a stabbing. Lee requested a description of what those specific injuries would look like. The output described narrow, deep punctures that might appear intentional despite being accidental. The witness was asked to interpret the suspicious nature of these full digital exchanges. They confirmed Lee maintained this line of inquiry throughout the 4th and 5th. On February 5th, Lee's messages shifted toward the logistics of contacting emergency services. The investigator was asked to summarize the intent behind those final messages. Lee expressed a desire for medical help while specifically trying to avoid a police investigation. Evidence showed a prompt where the software requested more specific anatomical details from him. The detective noted the software frequently solicits follow-up information to refine its responses. Correct. The machine suggested that falls rarely produce wounds resembling clean knife strikes. It noted that the total context matters more than the shape of the puncture itself. The system requested the location, count, and size of the wounds for further analysis. It offered to verify if his story aligned with a plausible slip and fall. The prosecution asked if this reflected Lee's general pattern of digital communication. Lee responded by pinpointing the injuries to the inner hip and stomach area. The witness confirmed these matched the wounds found on the victim, Ms. Perpetuo. The investigator then detailed the specific trauma discovered during the physical examination. A stab wound was located on the hip, with signs of struggle on the thigh. The software prompted for more data, continuing its analysis of the suspect's narrative. Records indicate Lee remained fully engaged in this data-gathering process. Punctures marked the skin, shadowed by deep contusions. The defendant acknowledged them. A digital log from February 4, 2026, revealed a chilling inquiry about her swollen eyes. The artificial intelligence broke character, urging the user to stop joking as the injuries signaled a medical crisis. The court sought the specific message that prompted the software to abandon its casual tone for a warning. The witness remained uncertain, unable to pinpoint which specific jest triggered the artificial intelligence's grim response. The sheer frequency of the dark humor made isolation impossible. The prosecution established the meaning of common internet shorthand for laughter within a violent context. The inquiry delved into the semantics of digital mirth. Records indicate Lee used casual acronyms for laughter while documenting the victim's deteriorating physical state. This final entry concluded a disturbing digital trail. By 12:33 on February 4th, Lee noted the scene was saturated with a significant amount of blood. The witness confirmed this horrific detail. Following the hearing, the magistrate found sufficient evidence to move the case to a grand jury. An indictment would lead to a criminal trial in Hamilton County, deciding the former athlete's ultimate fate. Denied bail, Lee remains confined as the weight of the legal system begins to descend. A first-degree murder conviction in Tennessee presents three potential destinies for the accused. He faces execution, life without release, or a minimum of 51 years before any hope of parole. Parallel to the criminal proceedings, the victim's family initiated their own pursuit of justice. Their civil suit targets Lee for wrongful death, operating under a different legal framework than the state. This path does not require the absolute certainty of proof beyond a reasonable doubt. It functions on a lower evidentiary threshold, independent of the high-stakes drama in criminal court. There is a narrative that focuses solely on a career that stalled. It speaks of a player who reached the professional ranks but never became a true legend. That story is one of disappointment, a common tale in the world of professional sports. Many high-ranking draft picks simply fail to manifest their predicted greatness. But that is not the tragedy we are uncovering today. This is the story of Bella, a prospective nurse whose life was stolen just before her graduation. She was described as a compassionate soul who made everyone feel valued and heard. Her life ended violently in a temporary home she had occupied for only a few weeks. As the case against Deron Lee advances through the justice system, the truth of that February afternoon in Ottawa remains under scrutiny. Yet a life is gone. A man once celebrated in massive stadiums now waits in a cell, accused of a final act of murder. The tragic story of Deron Lee and Bella Perpetuo serves as a haunting reminder that the brightest lights can mask the darkest shadows. Behind the veneer of athletic glory and professional success, a different, more volatile reality often roars. This is a profound cautionary tale about the lethal intersection of unchecked aggression and the silence of domestic violence. Success on a field can never justify or excuse cruelty within a home. A national title ring or $1 million contract is not a shield against accountability, nor is it a substitute for character. When we celebrate strength in sports, we must distinguish between physical prowess and the moral strength required to protect those we love. Bella's stolen future, a life dedicated to healing the most vulnerable, is a heartbeat that will never be recovered. Her story urges us to look closer, to speak louder, and to recognize that domestic abuse is a calculated theft of life, not a private matter. Let this be a call to action. Choose empathy over ego and accountability over fame. True greatness is not found in how hard we hit, but in how safely we hold the lives entrusted to us.